everybody. How you doing? This is John Lemazny. I'm here with Sean Petrowski, and you are watching The Customer and the Service, where we talk about best practices in customer service in our area, which is the greater Princeton, Trenton area. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very wonderful as well. I'm really happy to see you. I feel like I haven't seen you in a while.
I was feeling the same way, actually, and I feel like it's been like a month since we've done this, but it hasn't been a month.
It hasn't at all, but when I don't get a chance to see you now, I really miss you, man.
Well, I've missed you too, and I'm glad we have this weekly time, even though we work a mere couple hundred feet away.
I was in your building today, actually.
Oh, well, way to fucking stop by.
Every Thursday I'm in your building. It's such a mess. I mean, it's not bad. It's just like a rushed mess. Every time I'm in the building, I'm like, oh, I should go see Sean. Then I'm like, what am I going to do with the cart, you know? So this week we have two topics as usual, and we'll probably try to keep it to an hour, as is our prerogative. And the two topics we want to talk about tonight are Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Thank you, Sean Holland, who turned me on to the film and who I have passed on to many, many people. As a matter of fact, I thanked another friend. I was out for sushi with another friend, and I did a little switch in my head where I thought the person who I was with was the person who introduced me to the movie. And I thanked him incredibly. And he was like, I've never seen that movie. And so I was like, oh, I'm really sorry. And then I was like, oh, it must have been this guy who I work with, who's like in the cubicle across from me. So like I saw him, and I was like, I finally watched that movie that you told me about. He's like, what movie are you talking about? I said, Jiro Dreams of Sushi. He was like, no. As it turns out, it was Sean Holland who turned me on to it. And what he said to me was, we went out to Mochi Mochi in Princeton, which is one of my favorite sushi places anywhere, favorite Japanese cuisine.
Mine too.
Yeah, Sean goes there a lot. And he and I were sitting down talking about instructional technology, as we are apt to do. And he said, oh, by the way, go on Netflix and go check out this movie. It's a documentary called Jiro Dreams of Sushi. And I was like, what's it about? Because I love documentaries, but, you know, there's a lot of them on my list that I want to watch, and you know, I just wanted to know what it was about. He also told me about Indie Game, the movie.
Yeah.
Great one. Have you seen that yet?
No, I don't. I know a lot about that movie, and it makes me angry, and I don't really want to watch it.
Ooh, we should talk about that sometime. But anyway, he said, yeah, it's about this little sushi joint that's in a subway in Japan. In what's the name of the area? Hippano.
Oh God, yeah, it's like something Hills.
Yeah, Nippagado.
Yes, I forget it.
But there's a train station or a subway station that goes through, and he's got this little tiny joint, like the size of my apartment, and it's like 300,000 yen.
30,000.
30,000?
30,000 yen just for a reservation.
Right, and which is approximately $300.
$273.51.
Thank you, Sean.
No problem.
Yeah, it's not cheap, but when you watch the movie, you understand why. So I asked Sean Petrowski to watch the film because it seemed to me, after watching it, that it was a great example of customer service, true, deep customer service, and I'm really interested to hear Sean's review, and I will certainly feed back after he's done. Sean.
I thought it was one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it really had a profound impact on me, actually. I'm a huge documentary fan myself, and literally will almost watch any documentary ever. And this was a film I knew about. My girlfriend and I are regular participants in the Philadelphia Film Festival every year, and this was one of the documentaries this year. and we really wanted to see it, but we were unable to just because of scheduling reasons. So this was something that was kind of on my radar, and when you mentioned that you wanted to talk about it, it was like a perfect opportunity to watch it. So it was something I was really excited about seeing anyway.
Did you watch it straight through, or did you have to stop and start it again?
I watched 45 minutes of it today at work, and then I finished 45 minutes of it right before we went on the air. But I had no I would have been able to do it in a 90-minute clip because I was like that engrossed. I
Great
just had to leave.
I don't know what it is. A lot of people who I've turned on to it, or who are interested in it, or who I have talked with about it, have told me they had to watch it 2 or 3 times to get through it. Not because it was a bad film, but just because if you're not looking at the screen, you're missing most of it because it's a very visual film, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the person that if I'm watching a foreign film or a film that's heavily subtitled, I do not allow myself to be distracted in any way. In fact, as I was finishing the last 45 minutes here at home, I actually put headphones on. I was using my tablet to watch it, and I actually put headphones on, which is something I never do when I'm using a tablet device at home. But I wanted to be that focused on what was going on because it was so subtitled. And you know the music was extremely beautiful, and you know the cinematography of it was really amazing as well. So it allowed me to really kind of hone in and focus on everything.
So you mentioned the cinematography. I wondered what you thought about that technique that they used again and again, that shot of the sushi as it was prepared and served.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. It reminded me sort of like a reverse of Darren Aronofsky's technique in Requiem for a Dream.
That's such an amazing insight. Such an amazing insight.
Yeah, so like in that film, they show you this same shot over and over. That's pretty quick about people how they take drugs. You know, like pills and cocaine or whatever, liquor.
Yeah, and you see their eyes get real wide, and you see the
Pupils, right? They get dilated, right? And this was like kind of the reverse of that. And there was even that one scene at the end of the movie where they're talking about like when you drink a good beer or you eat good food and you say that they showed him making the sushi with the slow motion that they were doing throughout the whole movie, and then they had this woman who was eating, and then you could see her face in slow motion just go like
That was the most amazing explanation I'd ever heard of umami, the concept of umami, which is the, you know, a flavor that's associated with MSG and some other things. But I often talk to people about umami. I say, "What's your favorite flavor?" You know, since, and most Americans who don't watch Food Network say sweet or bitter or whatever. And bitter is actually my favorite, but umami is up there. And I had a hard time explaining what it was. It's usually associated with certain foods, but the way that he talked about it, it was his son who was describing umami, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The way that he talked about it was like that it's about a reaction to the food. And, you know, think about how often you have that reaction with the food that you eat, and think about the kind of food that you're eating at the time. You know, it's like there's something special about it. You don't have that reaction about anything you put in your mouth. You have that reaction about something that has a really beautiful, unctuous texture, or something that's bright in your mouth, or something that, you know, it reminds me a lot of the sensation I get when I have Indian food. I really love Indian food, and it's got really bright flavors, sometimes very spicy. And I associate it now with umami because of that description in the movie.
The thing about the movie that really resonated with me was the dedication to like craftsmanship, and in this sense, it's the construction of food. That it's not just the physical construction, but also the taste, the smell, the total experience of preparation, serving. It was like a whole encompassing philosophy that Jiro had that has revolutionized basically sushi, the sushi world. And it seems like, even though he's received the Michelin stars, the 3 Michelin stars, which is the highest honor a food establishment could receive in the world, part of me feels like he's still kind of like a little underground in a lot of ways, like even though he's well known in the culinary world, I would imagine that maybe if we were to walk down the street in Tokyo and be like, "Oh, do you know about Jiro?" Some people might not even like know, what we're talking about,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, but that was the impression I was getting from the film, and that was like kind of really amazing to me, is that these people who really care about sushi are going, or care about becoming a culinary master in their world, are going to him to be an apprentice for 10 years, because they want to learn everything that he has learned himself. Like, for example, my favorite thing that he figured out was how to properly pressurize the rice, where he put this incredible weight on top of the pot, which was also a pressure cooker. And then in addition to that, they put a full pot of hot water on it, and then put all of that in a basket with a lid.
Yeah.
And that was and in combination with their rice grain that only their rice provider will sell to them and no one else. They're able to offer.
He was such a great character, that the rice
guy. Yeah, he was real interesting. But they're able to offer their customers an experience with white rice, of all things, that no one in the world can even mimic or even try to mimic, because they have a unique process, and in addition to that unique process, they have a one-of-a-kind grain of rice that they serve to their customers, which was, rice is the most basic, boring food that there is, if you think about it, you know what I mean? And they are even making rice exciting. And that to me was like, holy crow, like, just absolutely blown away. And, just the fact that this guy kind of just like, I don't know, it didn't really indicate, they talked about briefly him learning from an apprenticeship himself, but they didn't go into that much detail about, what training he received. But it seemed like he's spent, like, even, he said, even to this day, I'm still learning things every day. It just seems like a lot of trial and error and a lot of dedication to the art and what he's doing. And it just was absolutely incredible to see someone so dedicated to their product and the service and the experience that they offer in their establishment.
I felt too like the technique that they used in the documentary of piecing together the whole story by getting the point of view of the younger son, getting the point of view of the older son, getting the point of view of the fish vendors, and getting the point of view of all the other vendors, sometimes customers, critics, having the shots of the dinner party, and how they talked about the process related to the dinner party, then they showed the process related to the dinner party, and how the question was whether or not it was difficult, for example, to pay attention to male versus female from plate to plate to plate to remember who everybody was. And they were like, oh, well, we always do male, female, male, female, male. Like they had an arrangement. They paid attention to where people were sitting in the same way you think about somebody planning a party. Like not necessarily a party I would throw, at least not before seeing that film, but like it's just the amount of attention to detail made it so spectacular an idea. And the other thing that I loved about the movie was that it explored sushi as a concept as greater than food, but rather a cultural phenomenon. And what a great documentary! It just was a fantastic job. Really, we're in a way, I think, talking about a great example of customer service between the filmmaker and the viewer, that they went to such lengths to explore the idea of sushi in this case, doing essentially a case study. But also, then of course, there's the customer service aspect of Jiro to his customers. And I just thought from our perspective, for our content, it was a great example of doing it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that kind of also struck me was when they were interviewing a lot of the customers, they talked about how they got nervous eating in front of him, and
Yeah.
how and that's been it's a whole business model for his youngest son, who operates another location, and that son said how people prefer to go to his location because his father's not there, and it's more relaxed and laid back, and people don't feel as intimidated eating in front of him as they do eating in front of the father. So, like, even that, I mean, that's almost like a customer service no-no. Like, here's this man, and you're hearing from customer after customer that they're intimidated, they're nervous. And that was like a common question that they asked everybody when they ate there. Like, were you nervous when you went there? Like, if you and I operated a store in Nassau Street, and the first question that people asked about us when they went to our store was, were you nervous going into John and Sean's store? Like, that would mean like almost death in America. Like, we would not be successful. But because of the dedication he had to, sushi making, people overcame these fears because they wanted to experience the best in the world. And I thought that was like really amazing.
I agree completely. And what's funny is we sort of do have a storefront on Nassau, if you catch my meaning.
I do.
And in our business especially, if intimidation is a part of our technique, it is death. I mean, people don't come to you if they don't feel comfortable, especially in technology support.
Sure.
Or consulting, for that matter. And the idea that you can be truly great at what you do and what you know and how you express it, and have some level of intimidation as a result, you have to be able to find ways to diminish that. And in his way, I'm sure that you feel less intimidated after the fact, because if you watch the segment of the film that is that dinner party, people might have been intimidated while they were eating, but as they were walking out, they were very gracious, and he was very gracious in the way that he saw everybody off. It just seems like. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, I've had I wouldn't say like that level of one-to-one where I had a culinary professional in front of me serving me in that personal manner. But I've had culinary experiences where, it became very personal at the end, where I've established a relationship with the waiter. One time, like, I went to a steakhouse in Philadelphia with my entire family, and we got a tour of the facility, and like after our dinner, like the guy who was in charge of the whole restaurant, which is like a multi-million-dollar operation, like brought us on a personal tour of the facility, which I'd never experienced anything like that before, and it was just like our waiter was like, "Would you like to take a tour?" And we were like, "Okay," and then the owner or manager or whatever was like, brought us on this tour, and we learned about the wine selection that and the private dining room, which was an old bank vault, and these historical relics that were found when they took over. I mean, it was just like unbelievable. And so again, that's kind of a smaller example of what those people were experiencing probably, but an example like that nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I mean, I guess I've had similar experiences, but nothing quite so attention oriented. It's like he studied the people who came so that he could serve them properly.
Well, my favorite example of that was during that dinner party. He talked about how he served different sized sushi to men and women so that everybody would finish at the same time. and I'm like, holy crow, like, and then the whole thing about if he noticed you were left-handed versus right-handed, how he would change the side of the sushi that he was serving you from. Like that's amazing. Like
It is.
unbelievable. Like things that people wouldn't even like think to pay attention to. And and the other thing that was cool about that was like it was the restaurant critic, obviously, who was the host of that party. And everybody, had eaten their sushi, and Jiro was standing back with his son. And it was the critic that was like, "You don't even realize how observed you just were."
Right.
And it was the critic that was saying all these different facts. And because of how humble Jiro is to his customers, he would never volunteer that himself, but he would acknowledge this when the critic brought it forward, and that was, to me, was like, that was a really awesome way, I think, for that party to realize the level of attention that was being paid to them. It was really, I think, more powerful to do it that way.
And also, I mean, one of the things that came up a couple times was that he never missed a day of work. That despite his age, despite national holidays, despite whatever, he always found a way to get back in as soon as possible. And I think that is also sort of a different approach. It's like he's so dedicated to his work. And the other aspect of it that they talked about a bit was the family dynamic, this dynastic sort of aspect of it, and the challenge between the legacy of the father and the hierarchy of the sons, and how it affected their family life. And he said at one point that he wasn't really a father. That was either a self-critique, or he almost said it with a smile on his face. I thought it was also really interesting to see him go to his childhood town and like meet with friends. I can't imagine a better treatment of an individual than to study this guy in this way and watch how he studies others. If you're looking for a great documentary and you don't mind reading subtitles, it is a fantastic film. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm a huge documentary nut, and I've seen like documentaries that were put together on a shoestring budget all the way to the most heavily produced, heavily financed documentary, and this easily ranks as one of the best I've ever seen, for sure, definitely, without a doubt.
I thought it was a great metaphor for life. I mean, not only his life, but just a true dedication to something, and I think very much about customer service.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like anyone that does anything that's service oriented should like have to watch that movie. You know what I mean? Like after watching that movie, I started thinking to myself, like, what can I do to make myself, be as passionate about what I do in the way that Jiro is about sushi.
Right.
And there were, yeah, I mean, the one thing, I can't remember them now, but the oldest son, said there were 5 things that made a great chef. And I just immediately, when I was hearing those 5 things, was like, well, does this apply to more things than just cooking? And there were 2 words that were specifically, culinary in their orientation, but you could spin the word in a way that it would apply to almost any service industry. And I meant to go. I'm going to watch the film again with my girlfriend because I know she wanted to watch it. And I'm going to take extra special note of those 5 things, and I'm going to write them down, and I'm going to make that like a motivational poster for myself or something.
Oh, you and I should collaborate in like Inkscape and make like a sketch.
Sure thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
You're like, no.
I don't draw. I'll type the words out in Inkscape, and then you can draw around them.
No. We'll work together. We'll make a design.
Okay, cool. T-shirt number 2.
T-shirt number 4. Cool. So, I mean, I think that we should consider doing more movie reviews like this. If you and I can think of something that applies in the same way, we definitely should talk about it.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I'm actually going to go back and look at some documentaries that I've watched over the years to see if there is anything. Because I feel like I've seen other films about people, just about individuals who take a great amount of care in what they do. This isn't the first documentary to be made about someone who's this passionate about what they do. I know there's been others that I've seen, and I know they would probably resonate probably just as well with us and our audience.
Absolutely, I agree. So the other thing that we wanted to talk about tonight, we had originally decided to talk about a specific diner, but the truth is that diners are a lot like Wawa and pizza in New Jersey. They're sort of iconic, and I thought that Sean and I might be able to have a fun discussion with you about diners in New Jersey and how customer service is so potentially present there, and how the experience that you have at a diner and whether or not you would go back has so much to do with customer service and the way that you are treated, especially if you're like a regular. And sometimes, unfortunately, you have to end that relationship because the bad experiences outweigh the good. But there are quite a few diners in the area that we'll talk about that I frequent, and Sean frequents, I know, as well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what we expect in that experience that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with food, has everything to do with service and staff and freshness and a whole bunch of things. So is there anything you wanted to say to start the discussion, Sean?
Well, I mean, to me, the diner, I have like probably many New Jerseyans, like many Americans, I have a love affair with the diner, the New Jersey diner specifically. And I think a New Jersey diner is, and this is, I would say, probably acknowledged throughout the country, that New Jersey diners are unique in the sense that, we have diners all across the country. They're very prevalent in Middle America and stuff, but typically they're associated with the concept of a greasy spoon. And I would say that New Jersey bucks that trend in the sense that very rarely do I ever hear anyone refer to a diner in New Jersey as a greasy spoon, unless they're speaking of it in a negative way, like stay away from that place.
Right.
But I love diners. I don't know what it is. I don't know when in my life I became obsessed with them. I couldn't even tell you. I know I've been going to diners my whole life, but it wasn't until I think like my senior year of high school that I really started to pay attention to like what a diner was and what was going on there. And it wasn't until college where I really became what I consider to be a student of diners, like to the point where I'm very passionate about diners. And I've been recently confessing to people over the last 12 to 18 months that it would be a dream of mine to one day own and run a diner. Like if I could just
Sean, that would be fantastic.
If I could just quit my job and run a diner, like I would. And then my Greek friend Chris Kordelak is always the first to point out that I'm not Greek, so I would immediately fail. So.
Well, I think in this discussion we will decide whether or not that's necessary.
Sure. I don't think it's necessary, but I love them, and I love to go try different diners. I love, somebody's like, yo, there's a new diner. I'm like, let's fucking go. I love it. And there are, for a long time here in our area, I had a hard time finding a good diner. Like, I struggled big time. And then it was just weird, like, a switch went off at some point in the last 3 years, and I discovered probably like 3 super solid diners, which is like awesome. The Princetonian was a diner that I thought was good for a long period of time, basically carried me through my college years. But after graduating, the level of service that I would receive there on many occasions ruined my relationship with the Princetonian. Still am a fan of the food. The food is always excellent there. I never have a bad meal there, but the service broke me of making the Princetonian a top choice for me.
So interesting you say that. So interesting you say that, because my feeling about the Princetonian is very positive, and mostly because of the service. There's a couple people in the service staff there that always have a smile. They're always very attentive, or most of the time. They are willing to go out of their way to meet your needs, which is important to me from my nutritional standpoint. Like if I say, just the fact that they basically offer a fruit cup as a side for most anything at no extra charge is a really nice aspect for me. But my experience with the service staff has been generally good. Not the best in New Jersey, not the best diner as far as service staff is concerned, but pretty high up.
Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, what happened with me was it seemed as though it was the weekends that would ruin it. Because I've been to the Princetonian. I still go to the Princetonian for lunch sometimes. You and I have gone to the Princetonian recently. I still have a great meal when I go there. And, you and I have had good service there together. But it seems like when you want to go to a diner on the weekend and have breakfast out, or you have, like what would happen with me is, one of me or my friends would have a party. We'd have people that would stay over, and then the next morning we would go as a group to the Princetonian, and then literally have like the worst experience in service world ever. And that's what ruined it for us. And I don't really do that so much anymore, the big group diner outing. But it was such a bad experience so many times in a row that I can't do it. It's not my top choice anymore. I'd rather, drive the extra 10 minutes to go to Miss Story's in Bordentown, which is like, as far as I'm concerned, the king of the New Jersey diner. I've
only been once. I would love to go there with you sometime.
God, we have to go. That breaks my heart that you've been there one time.
And I really loved it. I mean, it was an amazing, amazing meal.
I found out when I was shopping for my house. I live in Ewing. The night that I showed the house that I eventually bought to my parents for the first time before I put an offer in, it was a late night for us. They got up here late because my dad's a high school teacher, and we had to get some food. And it was at the time the only diner I would go to was Miss Story's. So I took my parents to Miss Story's, and my dad told me that his
24 hour.
No, they're open till I think 1 or 2, and then they reopen at 5 or 4. My dad told me that his parents. Always throughout their life, up until basically, they became too old to live on their own, would go to Atlantic City all the time. They were big gamblers, loved the Atlantic City lifestyle, loved going there, having a good time. They would hire the same limo driver every time he would drive them down, and they did that through my teenage years, and I knew that they did that. But there was what I didn't know, and this is what my dad told me was. They lived up north in Sayreville, which is in Middlesex County, and they would make their limo driver drive down Route 1 just so they could stop and have a meal at Miss Story's.
Oh, wow.
And then head down to Atlantic City. I never knew that. Never knew that. And my dad shared that with me, that was one of their favorite diners in the world. And that was like that had generationally, this love of Miss Story's transcended not only me and my friends, but also like my roots too, which was awesome.
Well, there's a couple things that make places like Miss Story's, or in my case, I don't think you actually like Michael's, but Michael's is my favorite diner.
Michael's is good. My girlfriend and I have been there. When we were having a hard time finding a good diner, we went to Michael's on your recommendation. We had a great breakfast, had great service, liked it. But I ended up moving out of the Lawrenceville area, and so that's the only reason why we don't really go to Michael's. But we had a great experience. We definitely would go back for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I find my way there. I take my boys there at least once a week, if not twice. And whenever I'm meeting with a friend who's from either Lawrenceville or Trenton or somewhere on the other side of Princeton, down in southern way, southern. I'll ask if they're willing to go to Michael's, and people feel pretty strongly about it. Usually, they either love it or they really dislike it. And I think I'm influenced because I've been going there for so long. They have many, many locations that I've frequented. They have a Ben Salem location in Pennsylvania. They have a few in Philadelphia. They've changed hands a couple times, but the family always seems connected still to the main group. And I've gotten to know these people, and so there's a bias there. But despite me knowing them, if the food wasn't good, I wouldn't go. If the service wasn't good, I certainly wouldn't go. But they're so attentive to. It's one of those places that I wanted to go back because I'm recognized there, but I got recognized there because I wanted to go back. And they pay attention to regulars. And they have that thing, that sort of unknown thing. But what I was going to say was that Mastori's and Michael's and places like it have a couple things, and you can probably think of 5 or 10 too. But for example, they always have great delicious specials. They usually have a great variety of options, and for me, I'm mostly vegetarian, so it's important that I be able to have vegetarian options. If I go somewhere and they have a list of 14 burgers but no veggie burger, like, that sort of disappoints me. The service is usually quick. In other words, sometimes quicker than you want, but I'd rather it be quicker than I want than slower than I want, because it's not like we're sitting in Europe and we can look at the beautiful countryside or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I personally love that there's not like music blaring. Usually there's like music present, but it's not overbearing. I love that Michael's has a salad bar, and the salad is always fresh. It's really important to me. There's usually the person in charge is very present and active. In other words, if somebody is on staff who's high up in the organization and they are always sort of hanging out, making sure that things are running the way that they should, that's a very good sign. I've been in a couple diners where it's like there's 3 people in there and none of them are the boss. And you can tell, it's just not great service. And the reason really being because there's nobody saying, that person hasn't had coffee in 10 minutes, go check their cup, or whatever. And at Michael's and Mastori's, I'm assuming there's that kind of regular, frequent attention. And you begin to expect it in places like that. I guess you expect it in any restaurant, but there's the added benefit in a diner, usually, of it being somewhat unique. In other words, one menu diner may have staples that are present on every menu diner, like meatloaf or hamburger and fries. But there are usually things that make a particular place special. Like Michael's usually has at least one dish that is very sort of noodle and beef based, and they have like 6 variants on it. And it's always on the special board, and it's always like beef stroganoff or beef stew or whatever. But it's basically the same dish made 6 different ways. But if you got that dish somewhere else, it wouldn't be quite the same. And I love that about that place. I love that most diners you can get a baked potato, and it's like one of the kinds of things that I wouldn't do at home. I love the endless fountain drinks. I love endless coffee. If we go to Starbucks or we go to Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, it's
just getting one.
Huh?
Just getting one.
You're just getting one, and because of my addiction to coffee, like one's not enough. So usually, like when I go to Michael's, they don't even ask anymore. They just bring over a carafe, like the big pitcher, and I love that. That's one of the benefits of being a regular. And my kids always get basically the same thing. So it's that beauty of being a part of something. And I might get that at an Olive Garden, but I don't think I will.
I don't know. I mean, that's tough. I mean, the reason I go to a diner, and my local diner, my neighborhood diner, is the New Ewing Diner, and I feel even though I love my stories, the fact that I mean, when I grew up in Toms River, the diner I would go to, it wasn't really very close to my house, but it was the Toms River Diner. That's what it was called, and it was run by a family whose boys went to my high school. My friend Chris was on the soccer team with one of the boys. So it was a very kind of like, even though it wasn't in my neighborhood, it was part of my town, and I had a very close connection to it because just in its name, it was the Toms River Diner. The food was good. We knew the servers because we would go in at the same time. It was awesome, And I've been looking for a place that kind of made me feel like I was at home, not at my mom's house home, but like that I was in my hometown on my home turf. You know what I mean? Like this was my territory kind of thing. And the New Ewing Diner, when I go there, like I get excited, and it's because it's right down the street from my house, and I'm in town, and I see a lot of familiar faces now, and my girlfriend and I went there during the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. We had power and stuff, but it was still difficult to get to the grocery store. Grocery stores were still coming back. It was
hard to find coffee after Sandy.
That too, yeah. I mean, it was tough, and like a beacon of hope, the New Ewing Diner was open through the whole thing. And I remember going in there, and it was just so crowded, and people were just going there, and there was a wait, and I don't know if it was because they recognized me or what, but the guy just said just the two. It was the same guy that's always there. He's got like a crew cut and glasses, and he's like, "Just the two of you?" He's like, "I got 2 seats at the countertop if you don't mind." And we're like, "Right, sure, no problem."
There's a sign on the door that says, we reserve the right to put you at the counter if you're just a party of 1 or 2.
Right. But it was like, you can either wait or we'll put you right up front if you want. And I was like, that's awesome. But it was cool because like you could see that all the people that were there were like part of Ewing or TCNJ students, and everybody was coming together. People were just ordering takeout food for their homes.
And the high school's right down the street.
Right down the street, kids were there. And the other cool thing was that when I checked out at the counter, I noticed that there was a pamphlet. It was a list, a stapled packet, and it had names of all the Ewing Township municipal employees, like Department of Transportation people, the cops, and PSE&G workers that were working in the area. And they were just literally, I don't know if the companies had made arrangements with them or what, but it was like there was a crew of PSE&G guys that were just taking a break, getting food, and people were, they no problem. They ordered it. They didn't have to pay any money. They were like, we'll take it up with the company. Don't worry about it. And, and people were coming up to them and just saying, we really appreciate that you're here helping people get power back. We're so grateful. And it was like a real awesome community experience. And, even though I love my stories, and I think it's the king of the New Jersey diner, that wouldn't happen for me if I was there at that time. Because
the Stories is a bit of a warehouse, too.
It is one of the hugest diners. And I don't know if you've ever looked in the kitchen. The kitchen is ridiculous. They actually there's a guy who sits like on I want to say like a tennis line judge chair. He's like up in the air, and he's got a microphone, and he shouts things in the microphone, like table 23, food is ready, and it's like but it's only in the kitchen. You can't hear it in the dining room, but next time if we go together, I'm going to point it out to you because it is one of the most massive kitchens I've ever seen in my life. But my point is that Mistorius isn't in my neighborhood. It's not in my town. It's in Bordentown. I live in Ewing, and I don't know. There's just something about it, because the service at New Ewing is good, the food is good, the people are nice. I just love it. I love going there. I can't explain it.
It's so funny that you say that, because in the last week I have been to New Ewing Diner at least 4 times.
I love it.
4 times.
I love it.
And I'll tell you sometime why that is. But yeah, I'm loving it too. And there was once when I happened to be taking a walk up and down Parkside.
Right.
Parkside, right?
Yeah, Parkside.
Yeah. And as I passed the New Ewing Diner, I stopped in and got a coffee to go. And it just was like a beautiful thing, that plenty of places along that road to get coffee. But it felt like home, that's what a diner should be.
And that place, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it is, but that place just feels like I walk in the door and I'm like, I'm here. You know what I mean? And I've brought friends of mine, who are hardcore diner enthusiasts like myself. I've brought one of my favorite professors, Dr. Bill Amadio, who's lived in Brooklyn and Lawrenceville for long periods of time, and he knows a good diner. He had never been there. I brought him there. He loves it there. I think I even made him a converted from the Princetonian to the New Ewing Diner by doing that the day we went. And I just love bringing people there for the first time, and because I know that they're going to have a good experience, and it's just like, if we ever want to go back, they're going to be like, no problem, let's go. I love it there.
Well, what's hilarious, too, is I had only been there maybe once or twice before. This was before the fire.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember being in there, and there's one dude who's sort of big. They also have a place that is up the street now. They just redid the Parkside Diner.
Right.
And that's theirs. It's now the Two Peters, which I've heard mixed things about. But I used to go there real late night because they were 20. I guess they still are 24 hours. And they have the most amazing fried zucchini there. Oh man, it's so good. Anyway, I went in there, and it was funny because all the breakfast specials came with filet mignon or prime rib. Every breakfast special, it was like 2 eggs, sausage, and prime rib. It was crazy. I never saw anything like it.
They're just giving it away.
They were. It must have killed a cow out front or something, because I never saw anything like it. That's the uniquity that you can have at a diner that you can't have at McDonald's.
Right.
2 other mentions of diners that I wanted to talk about for contrast. One is the Crystal Diner. Do you have anything to say about the Crystal Diner, Sean?
In Lawrenceville?
Oh, is there 2?
What, you're talking about the one in Lawrenceville?
There shouldn't even be 1. Yeah, there's 2.
There's one in Toms River that's owned by, if you know the comedian Dimitri Martin.
Yeah.
His parents own that.
Oh, cool.
He's from my town. He went to my high school, and his family owns the Crystal Diner. That's actually a pretty decent diner, but they compete directly with the Toms River Diner, so it's a no-brainer for me who wins out that way. But I assumed you were talking about the one in Lawrenceville.
I'm talking about the one in Lawrenceville.
Yeah, let's talk about that one then.
Okay, so on the pros list, they are open 24 hours. If you want to get something to eat, if you want to get something classifiable as food at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can get it at the Crystal Diner.
And pros list.
And pros list, right. So I think the service is really good. I have been impressed with the service usually. Usually a friendly person.
Yeah.
But the food is just not very good.
No.
It makes me really sad because from a diner perspective, for the experience of walking in and you see the really weird sculpture out front and all that, it was a very positive experience. And I've been there many times, many more times I've been to than I've been to New Ewing. But it's like I always go there as a last resort, and usually because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I could not imagine going there on purpose at 2 in the afternoon or like at 5 o'clock. Yeah.
I did.
Why would you do that?
Because I was in the area and I had nowhere else to go.
There's a delicious pizza joint right next door, Dominic's or whatever.
Right.
They have some amazing slice pies that are. They have a like a pico de gallo pie, like a bruschetta pie.
Yeah.
So good. But it's not open at 3 o'clock in the morning.
No, sir.
You know, and there's Burger King, but that's Burger King.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah. So I wanted to sort of say, you know, food is still very important. You know, if you don't have great food, like, it doesn't matter how good the service is. It doesn't matter how comfortable it is. It's got, like, the radios on the table.
Yep.
And, like, I had to listen to somebody else's choices. Like, you want to talk about the overbearing radio or music. I definitely don't want to listen to some other DJ at the next table. And the other diner I wanted to mention, I wanted to mention like a not quite diner, like PJ's.
Oh, God.
We have gone to PJ's. We had a good time.
I know. And PJ's pancakes are amazing.
PJ's pancakes are amazing.
They're so good. But the thing that kills me about PJ's, they charge you for refills.
The price, yeah, we were just talking about
and the pricing of it. The food prices are awful too.
But I think that's to be, you know. But it's also weird that it's not quite a diner. I mean, it's diner food and diner experience. But
yeah, it's not a diner.
Yeah, it's not standalone. It's not. It's sort of kind of cramped. It is a mess to get in on a Saturday, or at least it is sometimes.
Yeah, there's a line out the door, I've heard.
Oh, I've stood in that line with my kids because they were excited about it, and saw plenty of people who I knew, you know. But it's a lot different going there at 10 o'clock at night, you know, than going there on a Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Not bad food. Service is fantastic there. I didn't remember about the no free refills. That's really sad.
Yeah, that's why we stopped going there.
Yeah.
Now we make the drive to the Princetonian if we feel like diner food.
Yeah, and you know, we happen to work on campus where, you know, there's not bad food to be had. There's, I think, pretty good food on campus, but
sure.
And it's really convenient to take out your card and swipe and all that. But all of these, I think, speak to customer service. Customer service from the chef's perspective. Customer service from the maitre d's perspective, customer service from the server's perspective. And diners in New Jersey, especially those that we talked about, I think are great examples of the customer and the service.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if we could give out our own award, maybe one day we will. I hope that we get to that point where we can decree a location, you know, the customer and the service, like certified or whatever. I hope that can one day happen. Then we can.
No reason why I can't. No reason why I can't.
That's true. We could even just autograph photos of ourselves and say, "I thought about your Greek salad in space."
Which is actually up on the wall at the Princetonian.
As it is, because the dude was in fucking space.
Seriously. The the Red Bull guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. The jumping guy, right.
All right, Sean. Well, you have spent this hour in a wonderful way, helping us all to understand diners in New Jersey and how Jiro dreams of sushi. Thank you so much, as always.
Thank you, John. And I'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next Thursday.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.